Okay, it is 5 o'clock. This is the beginning of AI Agent Dev School for the new version 1.0.0 dash beta. Just pretend that says beta. And we have been working nonstop very hard to ship what we call 1.0 or V2. I know it's confusing, but think of everything we did before as the research project that tested the hypothesis and got us kind of the MVP loop that enabled people to do some things that were pretty interesting. But there were some really obvious pieces that were missing. And the entire experience of setting up, building, developing was just not satisfying to me, and I assume to a lot of other people. So we've really worked to completely change everything. And I think you'll find it very satisfying. So we're going to go through today the quick start guide for getting started from the perspective of a few different kinds of users. If you're just a user who wants to use this, and you don't want to know any programming, you just want to have an agent you can talk to or put on your Twitter or Telegram or something, cool. We'll start there. If you have been working on a plugin and for the previous version and you want to update that to the new version, or you want to work with that or like understand how that works, okay, great. We'll do that too. If you want to build a project where you have custom code and you're like an advanced user and you want to think of this like a whole application and you're using Eliza as your development runtime for this application, got you covered. We have a new project abstraction. You can run a bunch of agents. You run like a whole swarm. It's a whole thing. And then lastly, if you want to be a contributor and you would like to come and fix something in the repo, add a feature, add something to Eliza OS itself and be part of that, oh, I would love if you came and contributed. We love contribution. We love development. We have a whole server dedicated to doing just this. And I will try to show you how to get started there as well. So those are the 4 things that we're covering today. This is going to be extremely shallow and showing 4 different ways to approach the same problems. But I want you to just feel comfortable with using the new tools, using the CLI. We'll be doing these lectures twice a week for the next couple of months with the goal of downloading all of the basic, intermediate, and advanced principles of programming these things and actually building useful agents. We'll be showing off some of our own useful agents that do some pretty interesting stuff and are open source, so you can use them as an example. And then we'll be using all of this as content to then go back and create a more professional lecture series that's not just me ranting on a live stream, that feels more built up with actual visuals and code examples and project and a nice pathway for the next generation of developers who want to build with this stuff to just have a clear path. I know that education has been something that we've definitely struggled with in the past of just getting information of all the new features out to people. So we'll be doing a more professional round of this. But for now, just imagine we're here, we're in the beta, we've just finished shipping the stuff to have enough here to even show you what we're going to show you. There's still some bugs. We're working out the kinks. But it's really important to us to get this into everybody's hands as quickly as possible. So that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. Getting started. Now, there is a problem here where we have not published the main version yet, and I will try to make sure this is resolved. But we do have to append @beta at the end of some things. So if I run @Eliza OS CLI, I might have to say @Eliza OS CLI @beta. So if you're having some issues or you get like a no plugin version found for something or something weird like that, you probably have to append the beta. So I'm going to show you a few different ways to get started and we'll go through that. Okay, so let me just clear everything. The first and simplest way to start a project, before we start with projects, I'll just show you the CLI itself. The way we get to the CLI, you can install it if you'd like, but most people will run it from a tool like NPX. NPX ships with NPM and Node.js and is part of it and allows you to run executables directly from the Node package ecosystem. I have this package, OS/CLI, and if I type in NPX before it, then I can actually run it directly without ever having to even download it. And then if I add beta to it, then I know that I'm running the tag with the latest tag that we're running now, which is @beta. And it pulls up and you'll see this is our CLI. I've got this fancy new art. You can see the version here and you can see all of the commands that are available to us. And a few of these commands are particularly important. Start is a nice one. Create, that's a pretty useful one. Dev is a pretty useful. Help, I think help is probably a good place to go. But they're all going to be useful for what you want to do. But those are the ones we're going to cover today, I think. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to type in start. So npx Eliza OS CLI beta start. If you're watching this in the future, you might not need the @beta. Now that's it. It started up, and you see it says go to the dashboard. Okay, go to the dashboard. I load my dashboard, and well, I have a bunch of agents because I already had something running, so it's a little easier for me. But you can see I've got some agents. I have offline agents that aren't running, but I can start them up if I want to. I can spin them up and then go talk to them. Something that we're adding right now, and will be out by next week, is that you can put multiple agents into a room with each other, which I think is pretty. But for now, I can click on any agent that's online, and I can go talk to them, and I can say, hey, what's up? And that will go and do its thing. Now, you can see in the background, it's downloading a model. This is set up right now to work with local models. Out of the box, we have support for Anthropic, OpenAI, and local support. We can also do Ollama and a couple other local options. But we'll be adding support for all of the models that were in the previous version. We just migrated them all out to plugins. That's a big new thing. All model services are now in plugins. And you'll be able to choose anything you want, basically, as your model provider. But by default, if you have a computer that can, a MacBook or something, you should be able to just clone this and run this and have no problems. Okay, but I don't want to wait for that. That's going to be very boring and slow. So what I'm going to do, it's interesting that it's running that when I have the .oh, I know why. Okay. Do that there. See if that works. So the easiest way to get started is just to press the start button. Now, it seems to not be reading my environment variables. So if I wanted to change this, I can also go into my agent. And now I can edit my agent here in the GUI. And I can go to plugins. And I can configure, okay, I have Discord API token application ID, but I really need an OpenAI API key. And that's probably something. Actually, if you just give me a second, I could probably just go get that. And if I leak my key on accident, it's fine. It's just a dev. Cool. I add the key, and now I've got the OpenAI API key in there. I think we're running into one of our first beta issues. Got some sort of funky issue, but that's how you change the API keys. Get this back to and configure everything. Okay, so that's the first way I can start up. But you notice that there's no project there. Those agents you saw were already in my database. If you're starting from scratch, that's fine, because if you don't care about coding anything, modifying anything, you just want to go create your own agents from the console here. Oh, you can do that all day. Let me just start it back up really quick. You can just go create a new agent, say Shaw's awesome agent. How about Steve? Steve is a good name. And call him Steve. And we'll say always respond as the Stevest Steve in the universe. Right, whatever. Steve is a super genius with good look and a great attitude. And you can just go through. Steve likes quantum physics. And he also likes biomedical engineering. And happy, jovial, manly, very manly. And whatever, we can just save it and go our Steve character, start him up, and then we can go chat with him. There might be some issues. We'll see if he starts up. Point being, that's how you make it. So I don't really want to wait for it, though. Clear here. Okay, so if you want to create a project, though, and you actually want to build like an application or an agent that can do unique things, you probably want to create a custom plugin or a custom project entirely. And we have a really nice command for that, npm create Eliza. But since this is the beta version, you do have to say create Eliza at beta. We do that. And now it asks us, do we want to create a project or I think we should create a project first. My cool project. And it's going to ask you, do you want to use pglite or Postgres? pglite runs locally, and you can just set it up with no outside dependencies or anything. Postgres, you do need a URL to a Postgres instance database. If you're trying to do this, I'd recommend using Neon or Supabase. You can set them up for free. They give you a connection string. You plug it in. Just works. But we'll use pglite. And now we can cd into our project, my cool project. And we can run npm run start. And now this is basically the exact same, but it's not the exact same. Let me open up the project. And this is what we've created. We've created a my cool project, and it has source data. You can see that your character is actually here. We'll get into that in a second. It's got a test plugin. It's got some tests, right? So we used to have a character file, character.json. We can still load those in, but we wanted to, this has some benefits. One, we can dynamically load plugins based on if we have the API keys. So we can make projects that the plugin loading is a bit more dynamic than if we just pass in JSON. We can't do this cool stuff. Two, we can apply secrets here by saying like this. See, this is how we do secrets. We can pass them through the runtime, but we could also then namespace them. So we could say Eliza Discord token. And so to the agent, this is the secret, but we can have like unique namespaced environment variables if we wanted to have multiple agents with different secrets, or we could even just have these be, get this from S3 or Amazon Secrets Manager or something like that, whatever we want. And three, the biggest thing is that if you make an error, it shows up that there is an error. And we had a lot of JSON validation. A lot of people get stuck not being able to start their project because their JSON was incorrectly formed. If you get the event emitter command, try running npm run start in the repo that you create when you create a project. And the initial npx command, just to reiterate, npx at elizaos/cli at beta start, or at beta. Now, you're wondering, that's really ugly. It'd be great if you guys had just Eliza OS. And I agree with you. And we actually do have just Eliza OS as well. But it doesn't work on everyone's machine yet because we haven't published that final version. So you should use the other thing. But if you are watching this like a week after it's published, you could probably also just do npx Eliza OS start. And what's happening there is, in my machine, it's linked. So it just works. You can see it's pulling the right version. But on your machine, it might not be. So you might have to use the other command. But in the project, if you're having a weird event emitter issue, try running npm run start. I think we solved that, but you can see it starts off the starter plugin. It starts off the starter service. We can see initializing starter plugin. Initializing starter plugin. There it is. Initializing starter service. Going on there. And then the agent starts up. And then we can go and we can say, what's up? Hopefully it receives the message. Respond. It's not totally insane. Are you there? Hopefully. Concerned. Let me just get the .env here. Try. So everything that when you store a database, it's stored to this .eliza, and this is where like everything lives. I'll show you guys a couple other things related to that. But if I start up the project, then it should nuke everything. It's probably using my Postgres database, that's why. Okay, we'll have to figure out why it's not responding. Anyway, we'll get back to that. Okay, so the first thing, we made a project, we started it up, we chatted with our agent, we saw it locally run. Let me actually just remove the .env. Yeah. I want to start from scratch. Nah, not showing our agents. Okay, well, I got some issues we gotta work out. Let's see if I do the other. No, weird. Okay, for whatever reason, not showing us the agent when we started up. Copy the environment back in. Oh, I see. Back to the list of agents. Okay, I got some bugs working on tonight, but you get the idea. We started it up, created a project, we can then edit our project. We can see that this code affects the project that we're in. This is all starter code, which is an example. Oh, I know why. Because I'm dumb. I'm sorry. This is actually a really good note. I should probably remove. It has null, like models that just don't respond. That's not. Anyway, whatever. We'll abandon it. Okay, npm create Eliza, right? Oh, it's actually working with beta. Great. npm create Eliza, and then you can see we can choose to create a project plugin. So we'll create a plugin this time. So if you just want to create a plugin, and you can share that plugin on the registry and everything, then you would do the same process as the project, but it'd be slightly different. You would create this plugin, and then we can test it with a default character to make sure it works, and then we can publish it. So I'll say my cool plugin. We'll cd into my cool plugin. And this has a pretty similar structure to the project. It's slightly different. So we've got an index.ts. And this has an action. Actions can do anything, but we have this example greeting action. Just says hello world. Very boring action. Almost worse than just having the agent write a greeting, but example. We have a provider, an example provider. We have a starter service, and we have all of that wrapped up into this plugin, which then gets exported. And you can see we have the plugin can wrap all these different things. The plugin can have an initialization step. You can have a list of models that you provide. Take a note of that. We can run tests. You can see that we can actually pack test suites in to our plugin and then have test suites run on the plugin to verify it works. We can have routes. So plugins can actually have custom backend routes. They can even serve entire web pages. We can have events. This is a new thing, but plugins can handle events like a message received event. So if you have a message handler plugin, you can make custom message handling, etc. So this is the plugin structure. And you can modify this plugin however you like. If you like it, you can then say, okay, npx Eliza OS publish. I don't date. Then I can put in my username and access token, and it will publish my plugin to the repo, assuming that I am the maintainer of it. Now I can publish my own version of the plugin. I can have as many of those as I want, and I can just install those from GitHub. I can then point that to our registry, so you can publish your plugins directly to our registry. If you haven't seen it, we have a registry. This is a terrible website. It's a slightly better website. Right now it's pretty brutally simple, but it's just a list of plugins. If you're like, okay, I want the Farcaster plugin, you can see we have that. And then this registry will then be, so you can automatically publish to this registry, basically. So that was, again, with npx Eliza OS publish. If you are a first-time user, you just want to make some agents and like jam with them, mess around, npx Eliza OS start. Cool, great. Create new agent, test agent, etc. If you are a hardcore developer and you want to build your own stuff, then you're going to go npx Eliza OS create or npm create Eliza. If you are a plugin developer, you do the same process. And then what if you want to be a contributor? What if you actually want to build Eliza with us or fork it and hack your own version? And that's what I'm going to get into kind of for the end of this. I'm going to make this one pretty short. I think it's just getting started. We still have a lot to do, a lot of little bugs and stuff to fix. So I don't want to get too much into the detail. And as you can see, I'm running into some issues with my local build right now. So I got to make sure that I'm synced with everything. So I don't want to get too in the weeds. I'll just show you guys a bit of the code stuff. And then maybe we can go through a little bit of what's new. And then we'll wrap it. Keep this one pretty short. But let's say you want to be a contributor, right? So the process is the same as it was before. You go to our repo, and you can see that everything we're doing right now, by the way, is on this v2-develop branch. We will be merging this to main, obviously, in the future. But right now we're developing it here. And you can see it's quite far ahead. A lot has changed. We'll take that. And we'll clone it. And we will say Eliza V2. But that's going to take a really long time. You can see it's pretty slow. I don't really want to wait for that. So we're just going to go into our pre-baked one. And you're going to go git checkout V2, git fetch, just to get the latest. That just pulls the latest from our remotes. Got some new stuff going on. Okay. Git checkout origin / v2-develop. Okay. And we used to use pnpm, but now we use bun. And if you're a node developer, you're like, I just want to type npm install. Why can't that just work? And I wish it would, but it doesn't really do the workspace management well. So you have to type in bun install. And that will set up everything in the repo. Now, while it's installing, we have a lot of, now people might be a little confused. We moved all the plugins out of our repo. Why do we have these plugins here? I wanted to have a really tight development loop and testing loop. And it was just like a lot more sensible to have that be the way we develop. But we'll be moving these out in the next couple of days. And so these won't be here. I'm skeptical. Why is this here? That seems wrong. There we go. Okay. Whatever. I was on the wrong remote. Let's install. So you're on button install. You install this. This is what I would expect to see. We have app. So we actually have an application now, which we'll be releasing as an executable. If I run bun run start app, that will load up. And so you'll just, if you're not a developer, it sucks we don't have this today. But you can just download all of this as an app and run it. You can see it just looks like a desktop app. And it's basically identical to the front end app. It's just a thing here. Pretty cool. So that will be available for download in the next couple weeks. Great. And if I go bun run, I can see all the different things I can run. And probably what I want to do is I want to run bun run start. And that kind of gets everything going. Cool. Great. Looks promising. I know that this is old. Gotta make sure I'm on the latest. There's too much log spam. Fun download. Anyway, so we got the app. We have auto documentation for our repo. The CLI, this is where everything lives now. When you start something up, you start the runtime. CLI is like what's running the runtime, loading your agents, running the testing, deploying the REST server. All that stuff happens in the CLI now. We actually copy the client. We build the client and then copy it into the CLI and it's pushed there. But the client is our front end. That's what you see when you see that GUI. There we go. Now we can great. So the client is the front end you see, which we can display. Very strange. Just gonna go back to my other. So we'll see that that's what this UI is. This is the actual client, right? Core is where all of our core code for the runtime, like the agent runtime lives. This is where everything is installing this core code, basically. It's very busy. And so like our actual runtime exists in here, this runtime. This is where pretty much everything lives in terms of the agent itself. All right, check some knowledge syncing in the back. We have create Eliza, which just wraps the CLI to make that npm create Eliza. We have the docs, obviously. All these plugins are going to get moved out. They're just there. The project starter is the actual template for when you start a project. And there's also a plugin starter here. These are the templates that when I created that new project, that new plugin, this is where that comes from. And then lastly, this registry is actually probably not going to be there. That's just temp. But this is our kind of flagship project. So this is actually a swarm of agents. There are 6 of them. Maybe I can pull it up. Do I have a channel? Yeah, you can see I've got some agents just here. I've got Eddie, Eliza, Jimmy, Laura, Ruby. I've got Snoop. I don't know why. Snoop is just like my test guy. But I can chat with all of them here and they can all do meaningful, useful stuff. This is mostly my dev environment. I think I was yelling at all of them, trying to get them to shill a meme coin or something, and they wouldn't do it. But you can see that I have this collection of agents. And the new thing that we're doing is that you'll be able to chat with the whole org here as a group. So we'll have multi-agent chat. That's almost done. You can create rooms and bring all the agents into it. But the agents of the org are each useful. So our Eddie guy here, he's a community manager guy. Jimmy is our project manager. Laura's our social media. Spartan is our investment manager. Well, they all have a role in the thing. And they have different corresponding skills that go with that as well. Actually, I think Eddie's DevRel. So he's like he has all of the Eliza documentation loaded up, and Ruby's project manager. So anyway, so that's like some of the agents we're launching with. And if you want an example of how to do stuff, you can look at that org project and kind of use that as a place to, I would probably just copy and paste that if I was trying to build a swarm and then modify each of the agents the way that made me happy. So yeah, you make some changes, you commit it, make a PR, and you're in, you're a contributor. If I did make a change, for example, just to get to the end of this, I'd say, I like that analyze packages script. I'm going to check out Shaw new script 2. And I will say, okay, I will commit some new package scripts. Push that. to this repo. And so I made some changes to some code I was working on. I just saved it. I pushed it. Now it's in GitHub somewhere, and I can go make a pull request back to the code base of contributor. I am a contributor. Get me contributing. And I create a pull request. Then someone can come along and review this PR. And that's how we do it. A lot of people will say, okay, I got an issue, and this is how I, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Close this. Cool. So that's the overview. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be deploying, trying to help people get set up, running into issues, identifying how to work around or solve that stuff. And then we'll have a more, meaty getting into this on Thursday, and doing this next week as well. But I wanted to just show you guys the new CLI, the new GUI. And if there are any questions, maybe I'll take like a few questions from the Discord tube audience. Can we run multiple agents simultaneously as TypeScript files? Yes, absolutely. That's actually what the org is. It's showing you how you can run 6 at a time. And while you can only load one project right now, we will probably have multi-project loading pretty soon as well. There's some cool things we can do, basically. If we add more to the org, please copy, paste, or modify and improve. We wanted to make an open swarm that anyone could both get an example of and also improve. We have a kind of long-term plan for each of them. Also, frankly, I wanted an excuse to get the whole team behind actually building agents themselves so that they could have to just suffer the pain of the average user. How large of an update is V2 compared to V1? I would say it's very significant, but plugin migration should be pretty easy. Project is a way to have 6 agents. That's the way I would do it. You could also just manage and load the agents from the database purely. But it feels a little bit like, right now, especially in development, I blow my database away a lot, and I just want to have everything in code. Text embedding seems to be handled very differently. We've actually always had local embedding if you want that. It was baked into the runtime, which was really annoying. Now it's its own plugin. If you want to run OpenAI embeddings, you can also do things like stack Anthropic and OpenAI, and then it will use Anthropic first. But since Anthropic doesn't have any embedding model, it'll use the OpenAI embedding models since they're like next up in the plugin queue. So as an example, if I plug in Anthropic, just as a useful bit of lore, there's an agent. Okay, so I have Eliza here, right? And so first loads the SQL plugin, which is new. We're rolling SQLite, all that stuff into a single SQL plugin. Plugin Anthropic is ahead of OpenAI, and that means it loads this plugin first, and it will use Anthropic, except that Anthropic doesn't do embeddings, so then it will default to the OpenAI embeddings, because it loads this as the model provider for everything it has models registered for. If I go into Anthropic plugin, I have models. You can see it has an input for model type large, small, object large and small. There's probably a few others we could add here, image recognition or whatever, but that's what it handles now. And then the OpenAI one can handle like embeddings and stuff. You could also use local embeddings with Anthropic, for example. It would be good to allow devs to pick a provider. Yeah, I think that the problem there is we just need some sort of prompt for what provider you want, and then you need to put your keys in. If you put an OpenAI API key into the .env, then it will default to that, and it will not use the local AI. It's very slow on my machine as well. But it's nice that it runs all local out of the box, at least at first, so that there's not like can't call it a GPT wrapper. By using the org's crew of agents, can we bypass JSON character files altogether? Yes, with either a project which has a single agent, or you can just create the project and add more agents to that, which are like in an array. If I go look at my project, test project dot 66. If I look at my project code and I have a character, you can see that my project is a list of agents. And my one agent takes that character as well as a list of plugins and has an init. And this is really nice because then you can have custom initialization on each character. And so something we have is that when our characters start up in the org, they will reach out to the owner of a server they're in if they haven't been onboarded. And they will ask them for onboarding information. Hey, let's get started. Can you give a high-level overview of the path information takes through the files when an agent is started and they are prompted? Yes. Before, it was all pretty hard-coded. Like, we have a runtime. The runtime takes a lot of state. That would be like, okay, it should get your name and your recent messages and knowledge, and probably need this and that. And that's cool, but it wasn't very dynamic. And it meant you had to pay the same cost every time. And so now what we have is a new dynamic runtime provider system where we have a whole bunch of providers, time, should it respond, settings, roles, relationships, recent messages, provider that shows you what providers you have, knowledge, facts you know about the agent or about the other user or whatever, list of entities in the room, any current choices that the agent has to make or that are pending. What capabilities does it actually have? What does it actually know, like how to read a PDF? If you have PDF plugin installed, then yes, it knows how to do that. Or gave it some anxiety. Why not? And some of these are always going to get loaded in, and some of them are dynamic. And now something we added to providers is that they can have dynamic value, right? And so when your agent responds, it can choose which providers to pull the data in from. And then it passes that enriched data down to the rest of the run. And so you can add more providers as you go. Like basically when you respond, your agent responds, it can also choose more providers to pull in. And so the response now is handled in this way of your agent decides, should I respond? Okay, cool. What should I respond? What information do I need to know to how to respond? Okay, I get that. And then what should I do? And so before, Eliza would call one action. I wish I had some great graphics for this. Eliza would call one action, like reply or do thing. Now Eliza calls a series of actions. That could be like, okay, cool. You want me to go look this thing up on a website. Then you want me to write a brief article for you. And then you want me to reply with it to you. Sure. It will make a nice little array of actions and call them one by one. You could even say, hey, give me 3 different replies, each with a poem that builds on the last or something like that. It would just be fine with that, right? So it can be like, cool, reply would be the action. So dynamic context providing and multi-action decision-making are 2 big changes. Now, it's a little bit slower because we have to pay for one of the API calls because now we're doing 2 decision steps. But we're optimizing that a lot, and it should get cheaper and faster. And it's significantly smarter. For just a chatbot, it's a waste. For doing anything useful, it's pretty powerful. Any other questions? Let's go look at the... yeah, there's some things like there was a 5-minute timeout on the Llama download. I got that too. We fixed that. It's an hour long in the next version that we'll... I think the agent would be a lot cooler if it was called LeBron James. I agree with you. Maybe like Jaimes, James. Are you actually giving the agent anxiety? Yes. Problem is that out of the box, the models are too nice and friendly and they are too responsive. And if you're putting an agent in a room with 100 people, it's really fucking annoying if it responds to every single thing every person says. So what we've done is we've given a should respond handler. Should I respond to this? Problem is that the models are like, yeah, I should totally respond to that. That thing, of course, I know about that thing. And so, no, you need to have some social anxiety. You need to chill and worry about what people think about you. That's what that is. It's an attempt to balance out some of the internal issues with the models being a little too friendly. Which would you say the main differences between new version and previous one from dev perspective? The API is way simpler. Way simpler. Everything is on runtime. You say runtime.get embedding, runtime.create memory, runtime.create task. Pretty much everything is runtime.whatever you want. And you can look and you say, what is on the runtime actually? And there's an interface called iAgent runtime. And now iAgent runtime used to have a database adapter in it. It'd be like database adapter. Now it extends database adapter. And actually the agent runtime is also, so we've consolidated all of this so that the runtime eats the database adapter and then just gives you all the things. And so you can get knowledge and add knowledge on the runtime now, which probably is very nice for the RAG stuff. You can get services, you can register services. We used to call it clients, like we used to have Discord client, Telegram client. Now it's Discord service, Telegram service, just because we also had other services. And it didn't make sense to have clients and services, which were like basically the exact same thing. So now it's all just services. It also makes it so we don't have things like client.client, which was in the code places. It was a little bad. You can set and get settings out of the runtime. Pretty much everything is here. And just a new thing is that we've added tasks. Agent swarms work, but the agents they're pretty good at talking to each other when necessary. Let's see, got a bunch of questions. Can you elaborate on how to get it to provide a response? Yeah, I don't know. Mine's not responding either. Let me look at that after this call and fix it. But it was working all day, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on. How will the agent swarms work in practice? You invite the ones you like into your channels and kind of put them in there where they make sense. Just give me a community and get one agent in there and get people using it every day. Let's just start there. What is something useful that people would do? And so we're really focused on obviously we like the autonomous investor treasury management Spartan stuff. So we're working on that. We're working on community manager stuff and like a project manager that can check in with everybody every day on the team and write a report, and a few other kind of flagship ideas like this. So they can all work together, work independently, but they should be seen as like individuals who perform a job. Yeah, they don't have to be linked in any meaningful way. How am I linked with anyone on the team? If I stop coming, then I don't get money. This ability to abstractly build relationships. This is something we're working on too, is this idea of what we call the Rolodex. But like, how do I know that the Astrid on Twitter is the Astrid on Discord, for example? That is a challenging problem that takes quite a lot of inference. So that's the thing that we're working on there. Yeah, so it depends on responsibility types and jobs they perform. And I think that I'll give you an example. It would be awkward for me to give any of you my Twitter. But if I had an AI Shaw in there that said, AI Shaw has my Twitter, and if you come up with anything good to tweet, he will tweet it, then I would feel I'd feel safer about letting you tweet weird stuff from my account if I had an AI agent with some style guide, making sure that nothing like don't show meme coins. And I didn't have to give you any credentials. And like in the times that I've been hacked on Twitter, it's because I signed into some fucking website. And so if I didn't have to sign in or give anybody any credentials or anything, then I could basically share my social media with my community by just having this AI that has access to it that runs locally, but that other people can be like, hey, can you post this? And it's just a better experience than asking me to post everything that they want me to post. Obviously, we're getting there. That's your job. But managing a business is the future. I actually think that AI is probably better at the middle, like not leading the ship and not doing the hard tasks, but like middle management. I really think we should be getting rid of the middle managers before everyone else. Okay. How will agent swarms work? I mean, they do. We have it. You can just, if you get everything running, you can run the org and put all the keys, and you can have 6 agents talking to each other. Will the functionality of X, Discord, or other networks be native? No, they're all in plugins. Each one is plugin oriented. You could fork the plugin and customize it. And also, we've moved a lot of the like prompting and message handling and stuff out of and consolidated it into core. So it's not like a Discord or Telegram or Slack or whatever. They should actually have a lot less code in them now, like quite a lot less. Because all of the actual prompt stuff is handled internally and centralized. In theory, you should be able to send messages from one place to another too. This still needs a little bit of work and testing, but if you're like, hey, go post on that Telegram over there, you should be able to. This idea of agent memories persisting between clients, but this is like the thing we're working on a lot. This is the Rolodex idea. How do I know that you on Telegram is you on Discord? And so it's a combination of dynamic providers and this idea of creating entities and then relating the entities together. That's pretty advanced stuff, though. We have a new thing called entities and components. We used to call entities accounts. Now they're called entities. We want entities to be general. Is the idea of plugins to Eliza allowing agent to perform tasks? Yeah, that's part of it. I think we're also looking into MCP and just general, can the agent create its own solutions to problems? But right now, plugins do things like, oh, I want an EVM wallet, I want a Solana wallet, I want Telegram access. And that stuff really does need to come through like a plugin interface. It's just too hard for the agent to write its own code for that without quite a lot of handholding. But when our code has been trained into the next generation of models, which will happen because it's open source, then it will probably just be able to write its own plugins. Crash. Yeah, we'll have MCP in the next 2 weeks. I think multiple people are working already. Yikes, said he was working. Okay, I got bugs to fix. We're going to be rolling this out over the next couple of weeks, and we'll probably go over some of this stuff again, just like with getting started with the CLI on Thursday. And we'll do a little development project, make a little plugin, make a little agent. OpenAI Response API and Agent SDK support. Oh yeah, we should totally support that. It's on the list. If you want to make a PR, it should be totally doable. Trading bot, you could also add a tax bot alongside to manage taxes. Freaking honestly, a tax bot would be a genius idea. That's a really good idea. Everyone is going to jail for their taxes this year because of coins. Okay, to be clear, yes, we're calling it V2, but in the code it is 1.0. Because before we were on V1 and it was 0.0. So, I don't know. We're zero indexing. It's 1.0. Is it a GitHub username bug? Yeah, we gotta fix that. Okay, cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I will catch you on Thursday.